Okay, so just a formal welcome to everyone, and thank you so much for joining. I have just hit the record button, and we'll share the recording and the slides with everyone afterwards. So in terms of agenda today, so we are expecting quite a few people to join us. So what we're going to do is Helen's going to give an update just on the recent September exams, and then an update on apprenticeships, including our final enrolment window. And then we wanted to focus today, for the majority of the meeting, on what our tuition plans are for next year, post the Level 7 funding changes. And then allow plenty of time for I've described it as a panel discussion, but as an opportunity for you to be able to ask questions about any subject you want to ask about, but particularly about our the tuition options that Sarah is going to highlight. And hopefully, if I've worked it out properly, we'll have some questions or poll questions to ask you as well. And that doesn't mean the questions we're going to ask you are your definitive answers, just a case of where you think you are as an organisation. So, without further ado, and obviously do drop questions in the chat box, but I'm going to wait until we get to the panel discussion rather than handling them as we go. So we've got plenty of time for questions then. So you can put them in the chat box, or you can just come off mute and I'll ask them live if you want to. So, Helen, over to you.
Helps if I unmute myself. Fantastic. Thank you very much, David. So ordinarily, Anna, the head of exams, would join us for the exams update, but I'm going to take it as part of our update on the programmes and the apprenticeships today so that we can leave plenty of time for Sarah to discuss. So if we could just go on one slide, David, that would be great. Thank you. These are the key numbers that Anna would ordinarily share, but the headlines, the highlights to draw out from the September exam sitting really are that from our perspective, they went very well. There are no known issues with the content of any of the papers. We had fewer special considerations than we would ordinarily expect in an exam sitting. And we also very pleasingly had absolutely no academic misconduct situations in this exam sitting either. All of the apprentices or managed programme learners that were unsuccessful in an exam in September have been contacted by the apprenticeship team to discuss next steps, to look at whether we need to amend their training plan, to talk about the tuition provision that can be put in place to support them with a next stage or a resit, and to consider the ordering of their next modules. Okay, so if I move swiftly on, if there are no particular questions about that, to an apprenticeship update. And again, thank you, David. One more slide. Perfect. Okay, so key things to note from an apprenticeship perspective, and particularly in terms of the funding, are that, as we've discussed at the previous employer forums, we had put in a pre-proposal for a public sector specific level 6 apprenticeship standard. And unfortunately, we have very recently received a firm and final no on that pre-proposal. The overarching concern is that there is a pre-existing level 6 degree apprenticeship. And so the Department for Education feel that they can't sanction the existence of an additional level 6 apprenticeship. So that's a firm no. I'm afraid we have exhausted all avenues, presented a lot of requested additional information for that, received some very pleasing, I suppose, feedback in terms of the quality of those arguments and the points that we've made. But the bottom line is that we will not be able to go ahead with a level 6 qualification. So what we are doing right at the moment is prioritising onboarding to the existing level 7 apprenticeship standard for learners of all ages, because from the 1st of January 2026, we would only be able to onboard an apprentice onto the level 7 programme if that apprentice was under the age of 22 on their first day in learning. So in other words, up to 21 on the day that they started the programme. Up until December 2025, we can onboard learners of any age. We are doing, therefore, an additional December onboarding round. The final deadline for an application to that round remains the 14th of December. And that's so that we can work through the initial assessment and guidance that is required by the Department for Education to secure that apprenticeship levy funding for the duration. Just to be really clear again, anybody who joins that programme can be any age when they begin and therefore continue on that programme at any age. And that includes a learner who's either added to that enrolment or who is already on programme with us, who takes a break in learning. So if personal circumstances require a break in learning, we can still return an existing apprentice to an existing apprenticeship programme following a break in learning, irrespective of age. So that December 2025 enrolment is unsurprisingly looking quite large. Lots of you have taken advantage of that. We're processing something like 152 applications as we speak, which would ordinarily be about the size of an intake, a large intake actually, for an individual term, but is in addition to the learners we've onboarded in July and in September. So timing is quite critical. The deadline is quite close now. Basically, our request would be to make sure that any applicants are well prepared, have good, strong communication lines with the departments internally that are supporting their application, and most of all, get back to us really quickly. Proactivity, turnaround times are all really going to help us to support those applications. So even if we've asked them for something that actually they can't provide, come straight back and tell us that, and we can talk about next steps and what we do about that. But whatever they do, don't just leave the email languishing in their inbox, because we need to be swift and on it and turn these things around quite quickly.
Sorry,
So,
Helen.
yeah,
Can I
sure.
just come in there? Can I just clarify the deadline for that? Because it says there on the 14th of November, but I might have misheard, but I thought you said the 14th of December for the deadline. Can I just clarify what the
Yeah.
deadline is? Is it November?
Apologies if I misspoke. It is the 14th of November, and that's
Great
the
stuff.
deadline for applications for the December intake.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, good thing to clarify, Richard. If I got that wrong, I'm really sorry. That's absolutely the thing we need to be clear on. So a deadline to have a named applicant is the 14th of November. Once they're enrolled on that programme, then the start of the course will look slightly different to those that joined in July and September, because we are reordering the beginning of the tuition, starting with an induction day on the 17th of December. That induction day will be exactly the same as we do for all of our new apprentices. So they will receive an induction with me, and as part of the day, they will complete the ethics module, which results in a certificate that we will upload to their e-portfolio as evidence of their first day in learning. As a consequence, attendance on that first day on the 17th of December is absolutely mandatory. So they need to be available to attend that day live, complete that ethics module, and upload that certificate as firm evidence of a first day in learning in the 2025 calendar year. Once they have completed that and are safely onboarded on programme and funded, they will then move on to study in January and February to sit the governance and risk management module, sitting that exam in the first week of March 2026. So their first exam sitting March 2026. We've picked GRM because it's a module that nobody is exempt from. So it's a safe first starting point for all of the learners who will be onboarded there. It's also a relatively small and usually manageable module, particularly when taken in isolation. It's a module that, for those of you with apprentices already on programme, you may quite commonly see as an interim sitting module. So it's quite often done in this way. Once they've done GRM, they will move on in the normal spring 2026 term to whichever of the first modules they are not exempt from. So for an applicant holding no exemptions, that would usually be financial accounting and management accounting. If they do hold exemptions from a relevant degree or perhaps AAT, we would move them on to audit and assurance, whichever is the next module that they need to do. So the other thing to be aware of is that all of the new applicants will need to take out SIT for membership, because they can't be onboarded and eligible to book examinations, etc., without membership. They will do that as part of the onboarding process in 2025. But there is a special arrangement in place to make sure that the membership fee they pay will then take them through to the end of December 2026, because it's obviously quite unusual for us to be taking them on board so late in the year and them taking them out new student membership at that point. Okay, so hopefully that covers the December 2025 enrolment, the design of the course, the plans for that intake and those days. The other thing that we have happening in the world of apprenticeships right at the moment is the run into the December 2025 endpoint assessment. So apprentices who've been on programme 3.5 years, usually coming towards the end of the programme. It's also the largest endpoint assessment round that we have yet done. So we've put lots of careful things in place to make sure that having both the very large enrolment and the very large endpoint assessment running concurrently through the apprenticeship team isn't going to cause any problems for anybody. We've done a large preemptive check already. We've made that part of our quality review process for our work-based learning coaches who support your apprentices with the creation of their portfolios. We've therefore already looked at all of the portfolios of the apprentices heading for December EPA and have made contact with any that we feel need to make some last tweaks and adjustments to those portfolios. The final thing I'm going to say then before I pass across to Sarah is just to note that we all also took note of the Education Select Committee recommendations that came out recently that did look at the removal of level 7 funding from older learners, those over 21 at first day in learning. And essentially the recommendations of the Select Committee was that this was possibly a mistake or a short-sighted step and potentially needed to be revisited. And I think we're all very clear that in the public sector that is particularly true, that the vast majority of our apprentices join a level 7 programme at above the age of 22. It tends to be something that's particularly true of the public sector, and therefore lots of opportunities to fund development in that way are not going to be available for 2026. But we also have to be realistic. That is an Education Select Committee recommendation. It's not something that is going to be immediately acted upon. And so for 2026, we would only be able to onboard an apprentice if they were 21 or younger on their first day in learning. A new graduate who had come straight through university and left at the age of 21 could join programme. But if a graduate had taken a year out prior to university, done a foundation year, needed an extension to their degree for a resit, or indeed had done a work placement year, then they would ordinarily be graduating at 22 years of age at least, and therefore not eligible for apprenticeship levy funding next year. Which leads us nicely into the issues that Sarah is going to cover.
Thanks, Helen. And thank you, David. So for those who haven't met me before, I'm Sarah Shreves, Head of Training Services at SIPFA, so responsible for kind of operations in CETC. And we wanted to share with you what our proposed options are for tuition in 2026, after the change in levy funding and kind of after the dust has settled a little bit on the sort of rejection of our level 6 application, which we'd obviously been hopeful would be approved, but we're certainly not banking on that. But now that we've got a greater degree of certainty, much as we might not like it, we can start planning in earnest for what 2026 looks like. Now, obviously, you are our kind of key stakeholder group here, and we want to run past you what the options that we're proposing are for 2026. But I should say they are proposals. So, there may be things that change as a result of, what you tell us, or indeed other factors, including kind of, high level approval within SIPFA and those sorts of things. So these are just proposals at the moment. There's quite a lot of detail in the next slide. So we will send you, at least a version of these slides, if not the actual deck. But we're very keen to hear your views on what's coming next. And so, if you want to start putting things into the chat box, that's fine. But we are hoping to leave quite a bit of time at the end of this hour so that we can be having the panel discussion or take questions and take your views as David said. So David, if you don't mind just moving on. Thank you. So essentially, we're planning 3 options for, or might need another click, David. I don't know if we've got animation on these slides. Okay, thank you. So we are planning to offer 3 main options for employers. So the first option is a full apprenticeship. Now, we're committing to continuing to deliver that apprenticeship, and obviously, as you already know, anyone who's already on programme, you know, their funding is safe until they complete. But we will be taking on new apprenticeship students in 2026 who are either levy funded because they're eligible, i.e. they're under 22 on their first day in learning, or we will continue to offer the apprenticeship programme, but as an employer-funded model. So obviously that's for the scenario where students aren't eligible for levy funds. Many of you may not already know that we do some of that already. If an employer has got a number of students to give us, and consistency is important, it might be that 3 out of the 4 are eligible for an apprenticeship funding and 1 isn't. So we give them exactly the same programme as the funded apprentices, and that offer will endure into 2026. So that's obviously got all of the features of the regular apprenticeship programme. Nothing changes in that respect. There is all that you would expect in terms of certainty over the full range of tuition options and resit guarantees, fixed price, and includes coaching and portfolio preparation. So that might be interesting for employers that are keen to get consistency of service, if you like, consistency of support to students if you've got some levy funded students as well as some that aren't eligible for levy funding. So the second option, if you don't mind another click, David, thank you, is so this is our new proposal, name to be confirmed, but for the moment we're calling it the Training Employer Scheme, with you as the training employer, obviously, if you elect to put students on this route. So here it is an option where we're providing a lot of the same features of an apprenticeship programme, but we're stripping out the coaching support just to really add a price differential. So you've got some choice here. Again, likely to be attractive to employers who are seeking some consistency with levy funded apprentices and also some budget certainty because we're offering a fixed price. I'll come on to each of these in a bit more detail on the next slides. The third option is simply a pay as you go. We will have a published kind of menu, if you like, of options for tuition and pricing attached to each of the tuition options and revision options as well, or self-study. So you will be able to literally just pay as you go on that pathway. Again, I'll come into a bit more detail on what's involved in each of these on the next slide. So if we go to the next slide, just a little bit more on apprenticeship funding. I can probably whiz through this because it is exactly the same as the current offer. It'll be the usual tripartite arrangement between CETC, employer and student, with an agreement signed up front so everybody understands their part. There'll be a learning plan agreed. If students need amendments to those learning plans as they go through the exams, then obviously that will be included and acted upon. So there is a sort of what we're calling the usual sort of resit guarantee. There will be full tuition via any kind of modality on agreement really of between CETC, employer and student. But in the event of exam fails, there will be the usual resit revision or full tuition available to students. I would say unlimited, but it's not unlimited because, as you apprentice employers will know, it is limited by academic suitability discussions. But essentially, if a student needs resit revision or full tuition again, that will be included. Coach review meetings will also be included, supporting students to achieve the fuller kind of range of knowledge, skills and behaviours that the apprenticeship standard requires over and above just in inverted commas passing the you know the PAQ modules, and also the support in getting students ready for membership by completion of all the bits and pieces required for the portfolio. And then also critically the usual excellent and proactive coordinator team support. So supporting students in the event of an exam fail, the guidance on module pairings, making the bookings for students, etc., etc. And as I said earlier on, there will be two options for funding: levy funded rather, or employer funded. I've put in small at the bottom there at the prevailing rate, because many of you will know that there is a new standard coming out. There may be some changes in what's included in the levy funding, so it looks likely that exam fees will be included in the funding, and so it feels likely that the levy drawdown rate will increase because of the changes in the standard. We don't have clarity on that at the moment, but obviously we'll keep you posted as soon as we do. Next slide, please, David. So the training employer scheme, as I said, aims to keep quite a lot of what we believe are the most valued elements of the apprenticeship programme, but not all, really to create a price differential that gives you as employers choice and options. It excludes, as I said, the coaching and portfolio preparation element, but includes pretty much most of the rest of the package of support that you get via an apprenticeship programme. So we do give, we will be giving a resit guarantee. So students who fail an exam and need to attend the revision or full tuition again, that will be included in the price that you've already paid. I hope it won't be too much of a surprise to know that will be subject to an upper limit that we'll need to, we will define. But there will be all the usual elements of an apprenticeship programme. So a live student induction, the learning plan. Students will be given access to the Learning Needs Profiler that I hope you all know about. It's an online tool that outputs an individualised report for students on how they might address any challenges to learning, with access to support resources. Critically for you, it will give you the employer progress updates on your students, how they're doing, obviously not only in their exam results, but in their engagement with their learning, mocks, progress tests, etc., etc. The usual employer forums. We will continue to make tuition bookings and give the students the usual proactive support through the year. There will be an option for quarterly or regular invoicing, which we hope will give you a bit more budget certainty. And we would aim to price the package for each employer dependent on the students that you bring to us, how many exemptions they have, and your preferences in relation to modality of learning. In relation to price, currently what's on the table is that the total price would comprise of 1 times each of the module tuition price plus £200 per module. And as I say, invoiced at fixed points to be agreed. Next slide, please, David. In terms of pay as you go, this isn't very different from what our non-apprentice employers have at the moment, where we have, as I say, a sort of menu of module modality options with a price attached. Tuition options we are expanding for 2026, so there will be the usual full tuition as face-to-face, full tuition as web classes. We will keep, for that second option, the web classes, the option for some top and tail kind of intro and revision classes in person as well. Similar to what we have at the moment, not necessarily for not for all modules, but where we can see that there is demand or where we feel academically that they are most useful. But that will still be included in the price for web classes. New for 2026, we have been offering our international students the opportunity of what we're calling blended learning. So that's a mix of directed self-study and tutor support. So it's using our Self-Study Plus programme as its sort of base element, but we put into a programme tutor touch points, and students have to commit to keeping up with the learning via self-study so that they can make the best use of the tutor support elements. I've got the next slide with a bit more detail of that. So on demand, that's simply our Self-Study Plus programme that we may just give a little bit of a rebrand and a refresh, but it's essentially what it is now in terms of Self-Study Plus, with really kind of no humans involved. It very much is students are self-pacing through that. On a future slide, you'll see some of the features of that programme. Revision only will still be available either to students who are perhaps resitting, because revision is part of full tuition, or the full tuition option. So they will have already had it if they've studied for the module, but if they're looking to resit, or perhaps if they've done self-study, they might want to book for the revision only element. So that is possible, and there's a price for that. For this option, there will be customer service support available to students, any support that they need, any challenges they're having with, I don't know, access issues or whatever. There will be the usual support available to them. But unlike the previous two options, it won't be the proactive support that is available through the training employer scheme or the apprenticeship. So next slide, please, David. Just a little bit more on the blended option. So as I say, it really blends self-study with the tutor support sessions. The tutor sessions are half days. We generally offer them on the same day. So the poor trainer has to kind of be like Groundhog Day, do the same thing in the morning and the afternoon, but it gives options to students about which they would like to pick, which works best for them in terms of work commitments, energy levels, whatever. But we do ask them to select whether they're going to be in the morning stream or the afternoon stream. That obviously has the benefit to employers of a bit less time out of the workplace, but there is a commitment that students will stick to the plan. They will be told what content they need to get through by the next tutor session, and there is the expectation that they will do that via the directed self-study that they're given. So the focus of the tutor support sessions is a kind of review of what they have been doing, and some focus on the kind of key module concepts, or the module concepts that trainers know are the most challenging to students. So we might do some exam question walkthroughs, for example. The blended option includes full revision as per the full tuition study option. So if the full tuition option has got 1 day, then there's 1 day of full tuition. In the blended option, just 2 half days. If the full revision option has 2 days, then that's replicated here as well. What we're showing you in the snip to the right is what's on offer at the moment to our international students. So it just gives you an idea of the kind of regularity of sessions. As I say, they look like a lot, particularly for financial management and financial accounting, and management accounting, but they are all half-day sessions. We do purposely put a lot more sessions into FA and MA because we feel that students who are coming in and literally just getting started on the qualification, having not done a degree before or AAT, probably need a bit more sort of pump priming, as it were, and so there are more sessions available for FA and MA. Next slide, please, David. So I should say this is just these are the proposed prices at the moment, but I don't anticipate a big divergence from this. But just to show you what we're trying to do is kind of simplify and make modules available for the blocks of modules rather available for set prices. There will be a small uplift for relative to the web price for those who are choosing to do face-to-face, but as you can see, it's not significant. It's about £50 per module more. But we've put these together so you can see students don't have to choose the entire pathway and go face-to-face for the whole qualification. You can you or students can select which modules they might want to do face-to-face or blended or on demand even. So with the pay-as-you-go option, they can flick between between the different modalities. But the prices at the top in green are just to show you the sort of price differential if you were to select each module using that same modality. Web prices for 2026 are pretty much held relative to 2025. Face-to-face has just gone up a very small element. I think it's about 4% relative to the web. And on demand, that's the self-study plus, has actually gone down. So I won't dwell on that, but we can come back to it if we need to. Next slide, please, David. So in relation to the employer training employer scheme, just wanted to give you some indicative prices. So what we plan to do is to come up with some standard plans where we apply some of our academic judgment as to what we think would work well. For example, in Plan B, where which modules would we recommend as full tuition, and where do we think that blended could work well. So we will come up with some indicative plans with some suggestions for the particular modules that might be suitable in that Plan B. But if you want full tuition for all modules, then assuming that their student has no exemptions and is doing every single module, then the full price would be £16,125. Or if we put that into quarterly invoicing, assuming a 3.5-year programme, then that's £1,202 per quarter. But as you saw on the slide before, that is a fixed price and does include the resit guarantee. So no kind of nasty surprises. Relative to apprenticeships, this is where it gets a bit complicated, because the apprenticeship levy drawdown, assuming no exemptions, is 21,000 as things stand, but bearing in mind that that's likely to change with the new standard. Of that 21,000, 2,100 is allocated to the cost of endpoint assessment, and 18,900 is the tuition on the on-programme support. So the differential is 2,000. It's just over £2,000, and that is what would cover the cost of the coaching, progress reviews, portfolio support, etc. So I hope that's relatively clear. We can take some questions on that later if we need to. Next slide, please, David. Now, appreciate this slide is quite busy, so this is the sort of thing that we would hope to replicate on our website, and we can send you this as part of the pack afterwards. But we're just trying to show really clearly about what is and what isn't included in each of the options, in each of the modality options in 2026. So we're making some adjustments about, for example, as you can see in the blended option, won't include hard copy workbooks as standard unless you choose the apprenticeship option, but they will be available to purchase. And then just some differences in whether the mocks are marked or not, and I should say marked by a tutor, because each option will have a mock. Where it's not marked, students will be asked to do the mock, and then as soon as they've submitted it, they will get information that allows them to make a self-assessment. So there will still be a mock in there, but they won't get the individualised tutor feedback if they choose the self-study option, for example. Again, I know that that's a lot to take in on that slide, so I'll just dwell for 20 seconds on that slide and be quiet, and then we'll move to the next. Okay, David, let's move on, please. Thank you. Right, finally, I just want to address level 4, so it's not an elephant in the room. we know that we're sort of acknowledge, I guess, that we know that if someone is not eligible for level 7 funding, there may well be a desire to either kind of pivot to developing trainees only up to level 4 using levy funds and just sort of stop off at that point, or use levy funds to fund a level 4 kind of en route to a full PAQ qualification. So in that model, the level 4 element would be funded, and there would be a kind of commercial employer paid top up to full PAQ. As things stand, there's a lot of change with the new level 4 standard coming at the moment, but as things stand, the SIPFA's PAQ gives a 3-module exemption for those with the level 4 qualification. So the top up is still quite significant, and accounting and finance graduates are likely to have more exemptions, and so could go directly into a shorter commercial top up route. And a level 4 apprenticeship is likely to be about 18 months, and so far longer than it would take to pass those 3 modules via a fully commercial route. And obviously, if you had students on a level 4 apprenticeship with a view to pushing them on to the full PAQ afterwards, you would need to be managing those the mandated off-the-job requirements of the apprenticeship. So obviously the 20% off-the-job requirement. Finally, just to be completely open and honest with you, the new level 4 apprenticeship standard could result in a higher number of exemptions to the SIPFA PAQ, but for us to offer a to enable that, we would need to rewrite the entire PAQ qualification. So we would need to transition to a new qualification with transition plans, etc., etc. So there's a lot of sort of ifs in there, and we're very keen to understand your preferences in relation to this kind of issue. And David, if you can move to the next slide. The questions that we have for you on level 4, and this is my last slide, you'll probably be pleased to hear. The questions we've got for you on level 4 are on the left of the screen, obviously, and then there's some broader questions about level 7 and the full PAQ. So we have got some polls, but I do want to be quiet in a moment so we can actually take your views on these things. But really on level 4, we want to understand from you, how likely are you to pivot from putting someone through to level 7, or that being the ambition, the full PAQ, to using the apprenticeship levy for level 4 and kind of sticking with that for at least some trainees. For level 4 apprenticeship, we would like full honesty in this room. How important is the recognition of the embedded qualification? So if we could go away and develop a level 4 qualification, how would that feel to you and your trainees against, let's be honest, of the highly regarded and very well known AAT level 4 as the embedded qualification? And if the aim is ultimately for the student to complete the full PAQ, assuming they're not eligible for level 7 funding, would your preference be to use levy funds for a level 4 apprenticeship and then to top up commercially? Or B, to take on an accounting and finance graduate with multiple exemptions and have a smaller commercial top up, or fund the whole course yourself? On the level 7, hopefully, whilst I've been talking, you've been able to read those. I think you're probably sick of the sound of my voice by now, and I'm keen to get the polls up and then open the floor for discussion. So David, should we try the polls?
Yes, let's do that. So has the first poll come up?
It has, thank you.
Good, phew. I think it does. I think I put a thing in there to say that I'm asking everyone to answer the question. So, if you're not sure, please just put undecided, but it is going to ask you to vote. So I think it's taking everyone through every question. So Sarah, we will just give people time to answer the 7 questions. I think also afterwards we will share the overall results with you as well, because I think that's important for you to know what other colleagues and other employers are considering doing as well. So it's really just your view. We're not going to hold you to it for your organisation's decisions, but it's just really helpful for us to get that view of what you think you may be considering. And again, as Sarah said, there's lots of information Sarah's run through. We will share the slides so you've got that information. And obviously, if anyone wants to have a follow-up meeting with us to go over the different options that Sarah outlined, we're more than happy to do that over the next few weeks to understand them. And obviously
Miriam is saying that the poll hasn't come up. I hope that for most people it has. And Miriam, I'm sorry, we have come across this before, and I think it's to do with the version of Zoom that you might be running, or cookies and caches and things like that. So apologies. If you want to kind of give your view on those polls in the message part of the screen, then feel free to do that. You can message me or David or someone directly if you don't want to put it out for everyone. But if you want to do that, then please do. But sorry, you can't access the poll.
Okay, so shall we just allow another 30 seconds or so for people to go through the questions, and then I think we can end the poll.
Whilst people are doing that, I can answer Jan's question about how would an employer tap into the ER training, the employer training option? Is there an accreditation process? We did think about whether we sort of align it to our what do we call it, accredited employer scheme, where employers who have signed up to that scheme, their members have different arrangements in relation to CPD reporting. But we want to make it simple and not put barriers in the way. So we've for the moment, we're thinking there will be no accreditation scheme. It will simply be that you would continue to liaise with the team in the way that you have been now if you're an apprentice employer. So, David and Victoria would be reaching out in advance of each kind of enrolment period. And if you wanted to put them onto the scheme, then that would be formalised by the agreement for each trainee that you have, much as we have the apprentice agreement up front at the moment.
Okay, that's great. So, for example, if we were to continue, I'm at Merseyside Pension Fund, we come under Wirral Council, and we're along our relationship with SIPFA is long and well established and highly productive. We'd be okay to continue doing that if we were to opt in to the employer training route, would we?
We would just need to know who we are contracting with, essentially, because of the commitment for the invoicing, etc. But yeah, there's no application process required.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Sarah. You Jan, I don't know if you caught most of that, but Sarah, your audio just went in and out slightly then.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's returned to normal now. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Thank you. Oh, and shall I share the results of the poll?
Yes, why not?
I just have to scroll. So can you see me scrolling through this? Is this scrolling through the results?
No, we're seeing the first page of the results, David, but we're not seeing it move as you scroll.
I can scroll.
But we can scroll on it.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, it's interesting because I can't.
Yeah, we can scroll down.
We can scroll ourselves.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's useful for us, and we may well ask again in future meetings. And as I said, if people want us to to have a separate meeting to understand or go over some of the detail that Sarah's talked about. We're happy to do that as well. But okay, all right. So I think for the last 10 minutes or so, it's really just opening up to questions. And as Jan has, just please feel free to come off mute and ask a question to our panel, which basically is all of our SIPFA colleagues. So myself, Sarah, Helen, Mohit. I know our training delivery manager is quietly lurking as well. So if you want to perhaps show yourself. And also,
I might be able to kick things off because I'm particularly interested in the answers to question 3, which is now gone.
Sorry, that was me. I've just literally at the same time said
David.
that.
So it was really about thank you. Proportionately more respondents saying that they would use levy funds for a level 4 apprenticeship and then top up commercially than take on an accounting and finance graduate with multiple exemptions and have a smaller commercial top up. I'm really interested in the reasons why that would be, if anyone is happy to share that, but equally feel free to ask any unrelated questions as well.
I think from our point of view, I'm Dudley, we found it valuable to have people training coming through and doing the job for some time rather than taking on graduates. I mean, one of our candidates for this cohort going through for the level 7 is an accounting and finance graduate, but actually we found that quite unusual, and we found sort of our strongest candidates have often been people who've come through the AAT route or come through sort of from work experience rather than from having an accountancy degree. So it's just our experience, and giving people an opportunity who haven't been able to go to university or have decided not to go to university.
Thank you. I think that chimes with our experience as well in terms of, some, I know Helen will nod at this, the some of our, the relative strength and weaknesses that we see in our level 7 apprenticeships and our students. And I think we do understand that point. So thanks for chiming in on that. Sorry, Jan, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was. So I think I'd asked a question earlier on when the level 4 and the use of levy funds to take that option, and it was does the same age restriction and those parameters that have bitten into the sort of under 22 rule, does that apply to the level 4 starter route then?
No, it does not, Jan. There is currently no age restriction on an apprentice starting a level 4 qualification.
Right, great. And the reason I'm homing on that is the AAT is a valuable qualification. I'm not saying level 4 SIPFA is not if your intention is to stay public sector. Let's call them both equal, equal in value. But the AAT, you can start at any point in your life. That's been my experience. You might not have had the opportunities at school. You may have gone into work and you may be doing things and you suddenly think, I'm going to get accredited. It would be horrible to think that SIPFA wasn't encouraging that mature learning as well, So I'm glad to hear there's no age restriction.
I think we agree with you entirely, Jan, and we like to see learners pursuing qualification opportunities later in life, and we wholeheartedly support that as well. I suppose the disappointment for us, and this is going to feel personal to us, is that those that do exceptionally well on level 4 would now not be able to progress to level 7 as an apprenticeship.
I know, it's tragic. I feel passionately about it, and it's really annoying to me that the government are standing up saying, we want to reduce the 2/3 rule on the university, and we'll go for high quality technical qualifications, and I'm saying I get that, but what about us? Why are you snatching opportunity by messing with the levy? Because it's counterproductive.
We agree with you. We agree with you, Jan.
Yeah.
And the real reason that they're doing it is to save money. Is the treasury.
Of course
Really,
it is.
that's the
But
real reason for it, which we all understand, but
yeah,
it's frustrating.
it is frustrating because once again the losers are the employers, and in the case of this particular initiative, the public sector employers.
I think we argued that point very vociferously and very
I'm
effectively,
sure you
Jan. And I
did.
think that's why we were, in a way, pleased to see the outcome of the
Mm.
Education Select Committee, and to have had, it was painful in a way to have such prolonged consideration of our level 6 pre-proposal, because it let me get my hopes up. They came back and asked a lot of very intelligent, searching questions, and there was a lot of agreement in the points that we were making, particularly about how this disadvantaged the public sector and older learners and people who were returning to learning after earlier life events, etc. I think all of that was received with lots of wise nods and agreement, but at the moment, no policy change.
No. Oh well, we'll keep trying.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions that they would like to raise or discuss, not just with the colleagues, but also with all the employers that we have on the call as well? Richard, sorry, I see you had you were patiently putting your hand up.
No, that's fine. I've only just put it up. So thank you very much, David. Just going back to around the start where we were discussing the deadlines for December enrolment. There was talk about needing to attend a session on the 17th of December, which would basically be the ethics module. Would that be in person?
No.
Or would that be remote?
That will be remote, so that we can accommodate any learner wherever they are based, and also in recognition that it will be winter by then and things go wrong with travel arrangements, etc. And it's absolutely imperative that they attend that session. So I've tried to keep risks to an absolute minimum.
Yeah, it's basically so that the funding rules means they must, to be eligible for the funding, we must start them on the programme before the end of the year. So 17th of December practically was about as late as we were prepared to push that. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Thanks, question. Barakat, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much for that information that you've just shared. I may have missed it, and I'm trying to kind of looked at my note that I was taking. Just to be clear, for those that are age 22 and above, so once they've completed the level 7, are you saying that SIGFA is not able to offer any additional calls at level 7 for them? So once they've completed level 4, sorry, are you saying that SIGFA is not able, that is the end for them? So there is no plan to have a program that is completely tailored for those that wish to complete the course at level 7? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a really, really sensible question. I know we provide lots of information, which we'll send on to you. Okay, so the point we were making, once they've done a level 4 apprenticeship, the likelihood is that when it's time for them maybe to start a level 7, they'll be over the age of 21 and therefore would not be eligible for it to be funded. But it is still possible, potentially, if someone started a level 4 and finished it and they were still 21, they can still theoretically then, well, not theoretically, if they finish the level 4 completely and are still under 22, they can then go on and do a levy funded level 7 apprenticeship. But the likelihood is they'll be over that age in most cases once they finish the level 4. But you can still then, as Sarah outlined, and we'll send you those slides, you can do a commercial top up, as we've described it. So they can go on and finish SIPFA with their exemptions, but they'd have to finish SIPFA on a commercial basis with the options
Okay.
that
Okay.
Sarah
I
outlined.
mean, so if we're happy to fund that, then
Yes. Yeah.
that's just what the part that I wanted to get. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Really good question. Thank you. Okay, we've got about a minute left, and then I will stop. the meeting.
Matthew had a question in the chat. So, Matthew, I presume you mean the current level 4 apprenticeship. So, if students are completing the apprenticeship, then all of the professional bodies offer exemptions towards their qualification in varying numbers. So, I think it's fair to say that, you know, other professional bodies, because their qualification looks different, the exemptions look different. So I'm not quite sure about your point with the ICAW. So we want to get people who perhaps do, because there is the ICAW have a level 4 compliant kind of pathway. So are you saying that perhaps take people who've done that qualification and entice them into the public sector?
Yeah, just more my point was obviously AAT gives you a bit more flexibility as it stands to go into sort of a load of different options, and I was just making sure that SIPFAS has the same capabilities. So that obviously makes it sort of more attractive as an employer to entice these people into level 4 apprenticeship, and then obviously moving on, we'd want to get them onto level 7.
So at the moment we don't, and sorry if I've misunderstood, but at the moment we don't have a level 4 apprenticeship option.
Right.
Some of these discussions today are kind of designed to feed into our thinking around that, which is why it's critical for us to know whether you would be more likely to want to spend the levy funding for a level 4 qualification, or just, you know, employ accountancy and finance graduates, for example. So that's why it's been really enlightening. We will take this and kind of feed it back into our discussions. But that was the point about, if we were to offer a level 4 compliant qualification, we would need to rewrite the whole professional qualification. So just want to be completely open and honest with you about where we are at SIPFA and why it's critical that we get this employer feedback.
Yeah, that's fine. That makes perfect sense. Just in terms of level 4, then I think that's something that should probably be explored. Having done sort of a route similar to that myself after university, I think it's a really good option, and it is really enticing for employers to sort of go down that route. The last thing we want is to sort of discourage people coming into the public sector because we don't have an apprenticeship funding for them. So yeah. I do think sort of looking at a level 4 option as an organisation might be a good way forward for employers.
Okay, that's really useful. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, we're just over time, so I'm going to stop the meeting now. Just to thank you once again for sparing the time. As I said, we'll share these slides and the recording and the results of the poll. And obviously, if anyone wants to follow up or have a separate conversation to go into it in a bit more detail, then we're more than happy to do that as well. And just final one, remember the deadline. Final deadline, 14th of November. There are no exceptions to that. That will be our final, the curtain will finally fall on our last cohort. So if you have any difficulties with that, please just get in touch with us. So thanks very much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.